Hey folks, welcome back. If you haven't been around for a little bit, you might not have seen this before. This is my roller table I put in, and I'm not sure if I like it yet because I haven't put an awful lot of time on it. This more or less acts as a bit of an outfeed / sorting table as I drag back material with the drag back fingers on the sawmill. Instead of rolling kind of right off the end, it can roll onto this. Now, I've got to figure out a permanent solution, hence why it looks a little bit rough right now. But I'm just going to try it out again today just to get the hang of it. And if any of you are watching and you have any input, make sure you put it down below in the comments. But more or less what I figured was, as I drag back material, I'll have two basic piles. I'll have the slab wood, which is the waste wood, and then I'll have the lumber. So the lumber, once it gets up here, I'll have to carry it a little bit, more or less pivot it onto the trailer. And then the slab wood, once it's up here, I might help it back a little bit with my hand, and then I'll just push it off this side. That's all I've got at this point. I think in a perfect world, I'd have some sort of a rack system, but the old rack that I was using, I think it's a bit too tall. And so if I'm going to keep this long term, if I find that the slabs are going nicely there, I'll dig down once that stump comes out, put that rack back and push it directly into the rack. At that point, I can pick it up with the grapple on the log loader, or I can go ahead and run that strapping around it directly in the rack. I'm not too sure yet. I just want to see first and foremost whether pushing it off the rollers is an easy process. If it's easy, then I'll keep building on my idea. But if it turns out to be more work than it's worth, I might just go back to what I was doing. Whereas the sawmill drags the slab back, I hold on to it with my left hand, guide it, and then I pull it into a slab rack right there without the rollers. But that's why we're out here. We're trying new things. We're seeing what works best. You don't really know until you know, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to hopefully know. Anyways, this unit right here, one last thing, it's 2 feet wide, 20 feet long. I built the bottom part out of a single log. Those are 20-foot long 2x4s, and then some supports. But 2 foot wide wasn't ideal for me. I'd prefer wider, but this is what I could find used. These are very hard to come by at a decent price. So I've got two sections 10 feet long for 20 feet. That's going to do it. Let's get this fired up, and we'll saw those red pines into some lumber. Here we go. Well, there we have it, folks. It's a hot one out here, but all the logs are gone, so that can only mean one thing, a little bit of tractor time, at least until I get the lumber going where it needs to be. Then I'll be back out here stacking it, and I think that's probably even worse. Maybe I'll drag my feet a bit, so that happens later this evening. Now, the slab wood, I am quite happy, I've determined, with this setup. This is a bit of a budget build in terms of a sorting table or roller table. In a perfect world, I'd have some sort of a powered unit here, kicking slabs to the right, kicking lumber to the left, and I'd control that from up here. But as I said, a bit of a budget build, so I think this is as good as I'm going to get. Now, I don't mind dragging things back and pushing it off to the side. In fact, what this allows me to do with this roller table is stack up some of the slabs before I have to deal with them. Up until now, what I've had to do is I've had to deal with each slab as it comes off the log, and I have to deal with it. Otherwise, it sort of sits here. And so having this roller table allows me to stack up a few slabs. Well, then once I'm ready, being able to push them off to the side. And I think buying a little bit of time until it's most convenient is very nice for me. Now, if this was a little bit wider, it'd probably be even better. But the truth is, if it gets any wider, that just means I'm going to have to push it further. The reason I might suggest having it a little wider is that way when the slabs get big, they don't inadvertently fall off the roller before I drag it back and push it. Likewise for the lumber. But I think this is going to be a winner. It's going to stay here for the time being. I see no reason to get rid of it at this point. It saves me bending over. It saves me having to work lower down at my knees and feet area. It keeps all the working area up nice and high, which is great. Now I might, after I take care of this with the grapple, I might look at something that allows me to slide the slabs out a little bit away from the base of this roller table, but I haven't quite figured out what that is yet. I'm going to figure out if I need it after I go through and pick up the slabs with this unit. If that turns out to be easy, I might go without. If it doesn't, then I might add it. We'll see what happens, but good day all around. I've got lumber, I've got slabs to move, and well, I've got logs to get. I like being out here, and I'm glad you joined me for this. If you have any questions about my sawmill here behind me, that right there's the Clarke Model 350-38. My Setworks on there, the Mikron Setworks. And well, this thing's a beast, even in the heat. Take care, be well, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you next time.